We are back, and today we have a special guest. We are excited to have Hope Rose with us. And Hope, we're just going to dive right in and let you tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you so much. I'm really delighted to be here. What do I say about myself? Alicia kind of prepped me beforehand. She's like, I'm going to let you introduce your bio. And I was sitting here thinking of like, yes, I could say I'm a, elite ultra endurance athlete. I'm a coach. I'm an entrepreneur. And at the end of the day, I'm love. Like
Oh,
I embody love, like that channels and transmutes through me. And
love
that
that.
and
That's
that
so
divinity. And
beautiful.
so all those other titles that yes describe what I do, it's not who I am. So that is who I am. I am love, a channel to embody that and transmute that out into the world.
Wait, before we go into what you do, can I ask a question then? Uh, in the what you do you connect with love as kind of your motivational force? Like not just what you're putting out, but like what's driving you?
Yes. I think a lot of us, because love is really our, it's I'll speak personally, it's my innate nature to love. And when we
Mm,
come home to ourselves, come home to source, God, whatever you want to call it, and we are like fully like in love with ourselves, not in an egotistical way, but we have so much love for ourselves that we can give it freely to the world and like see others in their pain and in their hurt. And so it's
hmm
kind of like the glasses I wear is like glasses of love. Like what is underneath that, anger or rage or that reaction they had, even a reaction I had. And I can come back to like our essence. My essence is love. And where am I deviating from that? How can I come back home to that love? And that's
Mm.
kind of like the divinity of, of our wonderful self.
I mean, poetry, right? And I think you just gave the best definition for like the value and purpose of self-care and like what it's supposed to be, not like the hashtag version of it where it's like get your nails done, but like having the love to come home to yourself through sorrow, through adversity, through happiness, and just examining everything through a lens of love and curiosity versus, shoulds and egotism. So I like the distinction between because a lot of people do go that way. So what do you do with all of your love?
Well, I'm a master creator.
Ooh.
I literally like, dreaming like when I go to sleep, like I am in like in the fifth dimension. Like I am in like in these dreams, like I am in a totally different world. And I've had many people like in my day to day of like when they hear about different things, they're like, I want to live in your brain. I'm like, oh, if you only knew. So I'm a very big visionary, creating like big things to really help humanity like on a global level to heal. And how can we make healing accessible? How can we were talking before we hit record of like, kind of bridging this gap between, male and female, like kind of where we are in 2025, we have a lot of, cats and dogs fighting, and how can we kind of come together where the masculine and the feminine are, it's energies in all of us, but even in the gender specific realm of like, how can we breed love and not hate and not, I've gone through, some very interesting experiences where I've seen hate play out. And it's doing a disservice to our planet and to humanity, to our future generations. So that's one thing I kind of, just I daydream a lot of like, how do we bring healing to everyone, and how do we make people heal? I know we can't make somebody do something, but man, there's a superpower. I think that's maybe one of them that I would want. Like, I want you to heal. I am also an ultra endurance athlete, so I have run 400-mile races, 14 50-mile races. Uh, just last month, I finished the Colorado 58 14ers. It's 14,000 plus feet mountains. So lots
Oh,
of lots of ultra endurance type events that I just love doing. So yeah, I'm an athlete through and through. And I do some speaking and coaching and guidance and yeah, all those, adjective words of really helping, and guiding people of like what is really underneath the procrastination. Or, I mean, I just had a client session this morning that I'm still kind of integrating. I'm like, it was very interesting of she went into like this self-betrayal mode. And I was kind of, going underneath, figuring out, and I'm like, does that resonate with you? And she was like, no. Few more minutes she was crying because we got to what really happened. And she went into self-betrayal because she didn't honor her boundaries with a family member the day before. And then she spent all day like punishing herself. And it
Mm.
wasn't, and it was something kind. Like, she was like meal prepping, but she was doing it from a subconscious, unconscious place of like, I can't believe I just let my mom step over my boundaries. And then she went into like a 24-hour self-betrayal. So
Mm.
I like to help people untangle of like what's really going on, because the problem isn't the problem, it's the result of what is it. So this morning, she woke up and she was tired and she was anxious, and the day was, she's like, I just need to make it through the day. And I'm like, okay, well, let's investigate, let's get curious here.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are a few things that I like to do.
Mm.
now I know when we talked, you had an extreme loss. Would you feel comfortable telling us anything about your experience with pain?
Yes. So I have a very deep story of pain, grief, trauma, loss, whatever you want to category you want to put it in. And this is kind of what I was alluding to a few minutes ago of really seeing the inroads of, you know, like the father's rights movement. So what happened to me is I was in a very abusive relationship, had had a child. Uh, I was raising my child completely on my own. The father walked out. Really like domestic violence textbook. It was like level 401. Like we were not in the freshman courses. We were like in the senior courses. It was next level. Like he tried to kill me twice with a newborn, pushing me out of the house. Um, Eventually like taking my car away, draining the joint checking account, uh, changing the locks on our house in the middle of winter with a newborn. I mean, it was quite a horrific story of yeah, loss. And I knew enough about like the government system and what the family court system really does. And what people don't realize is the family court system is a trafficking system. And people are like, oh, it's not just children walking over from the Mexico US border. Oh no, it's not. And eventually my child was trafficked from me. This is a recording 3.5 years ago. Literally ripped out of my arms. He had just turned 4 years old and did not know where he was for 2.5 years.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
He's still not home. So I have gone through the depths of loss and trauma and extreme pain that, I probably will always hold. And also, meeting those parts of me that, that have that experience. And then also moving through that of like, okay, there's so many other women who are going through very similar, same, sometimes even worse experiences than what I have. And how can I like really use my gift? And what I call a gift is like this tremendous gift of pain that can be alchemized in the highest service of all. Of like, a woman can, lose her son and come out on the other side and empower and guide people of like, you don't have to stay stuck in that story. We can like change a new story. Yes, it's like we're not bypassing anything, and we can use it for, for wisdom. We can use it to empower other people, and we don't have to be the victim of, of what happened. And we still get to, I always remind myself and others that I hold the pen to my book. I'm the author. Like other people, contribute sentences and maybe chapters, maybe volumes, but in the whole script, in the whole play, I am the author of my story. And so how do I want my story to end? Yes, this really horrific thing happened, and I was able to do XYZ. So that is one of the things that I have been navigating on a very deep personal level.
It's really interesting um, that you say all of that because in our last recording, Laura and I were talking about how do you find, well, we were talking about a lot of things, but we were talking about like how do you create happiness for yourself when you're in the midst of a horrendous situation. And I am very curious what your journey was to be able to say to yourself, okay, other people go through things too, and I'm not going to let this define the rest of my life.
And as you answer, because I know this kind of ties into what she's asking, you subtly mentioned like not bypassing anything. Could you include what you mean by that in what you're about to explain?
Sure. So let me maybe address the bypassing how I see it.
Yeah.
Of I think there are some circles. I don't know if I'm going to put a label on it, but there's social media can have like, oh, I went through this really horrific thing, and I'm just living my best life, and everything is fine, and I'm painting my nails, and like it was for the highest good of all. And I'm like, WTF?
Yeah.
Like, did you meet the trauma, the current trauma where it needed to be met and like move through that? Did you give yourself like the dignity of that experience?
Yeah.
And even trauma from, past lives or lineage or, ancestral childhood, and how that could be a mirror of like, oh, this traumatic thing happened in my adult life. Where do I need to grieve the 6 year old childhood that she didn't have?
Mhm.
And so kind of, and so it really, instead of, yeah, so I guess bypassing, instead of just like we're just gonna, kind of live in a fairy tale and just go off into the future because we don't want to face the pain of like, this really is deeply impactful for my nervous system and for my lineage, and like really honoring what you've gone through. And I think that is it. I guess the honoring part is giving yourself the dignity, really give yourself the honor and the respect to like move through it.
Mm.
And you don't have to go through something as traumatic as I did. It could be very small. And when we don't give ourselves the opportunity to feel whatever it is, and maybe I'm thinking of an individual right now, like she really wanted a relationship with her mother, and she's an adult woman, and grieving that will probably never happen,
Mhm.
like grieving the childhood you didn't have but you required, or
Mhm.
grieving if, for one of the things that I'm still probably grieving. I think there's grieving is like ebbs and flows,
Yeah.
but like I really wanted this relationship to work. I wanted to homeschool my kids. I wanted to have 5 kids. I'm like that's not going to happen. Maybe if I adopt, but I mean I wanted to be pregnant multiple times. And what I've said before is living the life we've been given instead of living the life we wanted.
Mm.
Living the life we've been given versus the life we wanted. And so many of us, my hand is raised as well, of like we're trying to like fit ourselves into this box. Maybe when we were a child or a teenager, like when I grow up I'm going to have 2 kids, and whatever the story you told yourself is. And here we are in our 30s, 40s, whatever age you are, and it's like, oh, I'm not living that life. Okay, well, let's have a grief ceremony for that. And here's what I have today. How can I have responsibility for that?
Mm.
What's my ability to respond to the life I've been given? Okay, I've been given this. How can I leverage that in service to whatever wants to come through me, in service of love? Okay. And so it's really kind of grieving the things we didn't have, the things we wanted that might not happen, and moving through that gracefully as possible. And sometimes it's messy too. It's a lot of tears, and that's okay. So what Alicia, what was your question, Alicia? Because I kind of like bypassing. So if I can remember, so I guess that was a long story of like bypassing.
Yeah.
So you
Um,
went through the pain, right? So you didn't bypass from your own suffering. And I think Alicia's pain was, or question was around like, how did you get to this kind of mindset, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, one of like the programs I have is like cultivating this ultra mindset. Like you don't have to run 100 miles, you don't have to run 50 miles, but what is this? And the ultra mindset is really all about growth, perspective, curiosity, wisdom. It's like really like embodying like that ultra life. And I think, years of kind of, yes, physical ultra endurance has led me to that perspective. And I will say like the first year of, walking without my son in my life on a daily basis, it was excruciating. It's still triggering. Like I'll see a, sweet baby photo of us, hiking, and it's still like it tugs on my mama heartstrings. It just does. And acknowledging that of like, okay, I see that, I hear you. Yes, super difficult. And how can we move forward today? Because I don't want to get stuck in that. Because if I get stuck on that, it's not good for any of my system. Like it's not a good place to be. So having that perspective of like, okay, this sucks, and what can I do to grow forward? What can I do? Do I need to take a nap? is Do I need to journal? Do I need to take a walk in nature? What is my system asking me for? And really using that pain as a tool of wisdom instead of a tool to reject or go into self betrayal or bypass in any of those ways.
It makes me think of Alicia and I went and saw Eckhart Tolle, and one of his kind of key points is that pain makes you more conscious.
Hmm.
And I guess one of the things I'm curious about as I'm listening is I really liked the not bypassing because to your point, and also loved your Instagram voice as you were imitating, like a phone voice, but an Instagram voice. But there is a lot of people just thinking you can just bypass the pain, and it's actually through the pain that things get kind of destroyed for the space to create. And one of the things you were talking about is you're a master creator. So I'm seeing why you're pulling that together. Do you remember like the first moment where you took the pen, so to speak, where you played the and you like were feeling the shit, you were like, and I can choose how I write what comes next?
There are certain memories in the last couple of years. I think one of the things that really hit me was, you know, my son's father and even like all of the court actors, players in this, like they really wanted to hurt me and hurt my son. And I realized they only get to hurt me when I let them.
Mm,
Took your power back.
And I was like, you know what? You may have stolen my son, and I am still a happy woman.
mhm,
Like my happiness, sure, there's grief. I'm not going to like say there's not.
sure.
And I can go about my life of like, you're not going to affect me. Like that is what you wanted. And I'm going to tell a very different story than the story you wrote.
Mm,
The
yeah.
story you wanted me to write, like that's your story. You can go write your story. That's your autonomy. My sovereignty is this. And I think that has happened over, months and even years. And it's still to this day of like, there's still things that come up and I'm like, got to keep my power. And you're not going to steal my happiness. I'm not going to, let him siphon off my joy, my peace. And
Mm,
that is very empowering because so many women in these situations with really destructive family court cases where we have very unhealed men and women, typically it's kind of the men's. I don't uh I'm not trying to pin one side against the other in this conversation. Just from my experience, there's just a lot of uh, anger and rage that is not been fully healed and like metabolized through the male system, the male collective. Anyway, so I see it playing out, and so a lot of these women, they're losing their children left and right, being trafficked through the court system, and they can let themselves just be a victim and just like, I'm not living my life I wanted to anymore. And they're letting someone else suck them down into like the mud, into like their level of, deprivation.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I'm living a great life. And the other thing too is when I can live happy, they lose their shit because
Oh,
they
yeah.
know their actics can't affect you anymore. And so it's almost like this fuel of like, okay, try me. Oh,
Yeah.
good. You know what I mean? And not in like a sinister way, but it's just like, I am stronger. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm way stronger than what you thought.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives fuel to like my voice, and it gives you a sense of power as well, of like, no, you're not going to dictate how I feel. You can do whatever you want. It might not be right, and I still have autonomy over how I react.
Hmm.
Maybe it takes a few seconds, maybe it takes a few hours, and I come back to that state of love.
Jeez, I really want to know how you move through that because full disclosure, I don't know. I just did a group yesterday with women who have experienced narcissistic abuse, and one of the ladies in the group had a very similar situation to what you're talking about. And I think I hate her ex more than she does.
I believe that.
So, and she tells me very similar things to what you're saying, that it's not worth it. She'd be angry all the time if she thought about it like that. And that she doesn't want to live like that, that there's nothing else she can do. So it is what it is. And her child is, I think he just turned 18. So things are starting to change in that arena anyways. But yeah, the injustices of the world in general enrage me. So how do we, how do we, um, number one, you didn't use this word, but give ourselves grace as we go through those emotions. And how do we, it sounds to me like you've gotten it to a system where it happens very quickly for you. And my emotions take me much longer to process. So I would love to hear more about that.
I'm an expert. No, no, I'm not. There are still times something just happened like a couple of weeks ago, and I just was like, ugh, like he's lying deliberately about something. And so I started investigating of like, when I know he's like literally lying, I have documented evidence of it. Like, why, what is, I'm sure both of you ladies are familiar with IFS, internal family systems, of like, yes, let me get curious. I'm a very curious person, which is great. So I was like, oh, so I kind of, dug into that of like, oh, it's like, when my reality from childhood, now it's coming into adulthood, and when it's not seen and heard, I want to feel validated. Oh, yes, he's doing this. And coming out of narcissistic abuse, like I honestly, it's only been maybe in the last 6 months, I didn't realize how abusive this, I'm not even going to call it a relationship. I'm going to call it like a dynamic. It was only 2 years from start to finish.
Mm.
And it was so abusive. I still am like, oh, that's still a remnant of that relationship, of that dynamic. So how do I have grace to move through it? I'm, you know, I don't get it 100% all the time. Like I just said, like it triggered me, and I just am like, oh, like, okay. And then it's just kind of pausing. I think it's the longer you kind of like do the work, the shorter the reaction time is.
Yeah.
And I have been so intentional on healing so much. I just was focused on it for like 2 years, like every day, all day long, like just, and being, I think, seen and witnessed in that like 2 year process was very healing for me as well. Like it was a very deep dive into it. And
Mm,
so now I'm kind of like, yes, I'm still, I don't know, triggered. I'm still sensitive
mhm,
and I can move through it quicker and really come back home to like, okay, what do I need? What is my system asking for?
mhm.
Like somatically, or is it texting a friend, or is it,
Yeah.
piece it back to childhood? Oh, very interesting. And for me, my system, I like to see how, like, it's a puzzle piece. I like to see how things like fit together. I'm like, oh, that's why I reacted. So interesting. And then I feel freedom of like, oh, nothing's wrong with me. Like, and yes, subconsciously we know nothing's wrong. And when you continue to have like the reactions I've had, and I can kind of piece it back to something, that is very relieving for me. And I think that's where the grace comes in. It's like, oh, that makes total sense. Now
Mm.
I need that piece, that aspect of like compassion and love, and like, oh, that's why I get triggered. Really interesting. And then, for anybody else even listening, you can, like, I've done this too. It's like thinking of it like as a game of like, like, oh, like, this person, like, they they're part of this game with me. Like, we're all on this chessboard and they're going to try to activate me. Like, I
Mhm.
had a video visit the other night and his new wife is, trying to lure my son off a camera. And I just was like, I have 10 minutes with him. I mean, I should have an hour, but it's not going to happen. And it was bugging me. I just was like, how dare this woman is on the, I can see my son talking to this woman, her whispering. And I just was like, let's make this a game internally for me of like, yeah, okay, you can do that. No problem. That's what I say to a lot. No problem. All good. And when I hold my energetic boundary of like, I just won that chess match.
Mhm.
And so it's just finding little tools, little things that, like, oh, maybe it's a game, maybe it's exploring of, you know, what caused this trigger to begin with and piecing it backwards. Uh, there's so many ways to kind of come at it. And I think when also too of what you said of the woman that's in your group, that you're more angry at your ex, that is, I think, also when people do hear my story, they're like, ugh, like, yes, they are, I can't believe you have to go through this. That is also reassuring for me of like, I'm not crazy. Like, they can also see it, and it's validating like, oh, yes, 1 plus 1 does equal 2 here, because
Mhm.
when you're dealing with somebody who is so honestly deranged, like, they call black blue and like purple is like white. I mean, it like, even documentation that he writes, I'm just like, how did you even get there? Like, it's so,
Yeah.
I'm just at a loss. And so when other people can kind of validate your experience, that can also help you move through that pain quicker, maybe more at peace as
Mm.
well, because you're being witnessed and seen and heard and understood, which is what everybody wants.
Well, I think like you're talking about such a big theme in general, even beyond overcoming adversities, which is like, when we grow up, we're kind of told more about who we are than asked about who we are. Like when we ask you to introduce yourself, you introduce yourself as love. If you did that in a classroom, a teacher might correct you when you were a child, right? So like when we're growing up, we're constantly distorting our answers to please the output of whatever adult is around us. And I understand like the requirement for the system, but what you're talking about, I think, is actually a path that almost every adult really does need to walk, which is once you get to adulthood, being the clarifying voice, being the power voice, knowing your truth and knowing how to come home to yourself, especially if you've had experience with anyone who's narcissistic, because it makes you second guess your reality. To your point, everyone else kind of commenting and being enraged, it was validating. So you grow up with these narratives about who you are that are not necessarily true, just to kind of fit into what society tells us to fit into. And then we can continue that path with your boss, with your spouse, with your kids, whatever becomes next. Or you can do the quote unquote work, get curious, play the game, I think my face was contorting because Alicia and I have talked about this multiple times, and that's exactly what I say is like, don't bite the bait is the game that I play. And like, they're trying to bait you. Are you going to hook? Are you going to be the fish that like is like, ooh, there's a worm. Like, you know what's going to happen if you try and eat that worm. You're going to get hooked. You're going to go on a ride, and they're going to have the power. But I think it's kind of the okay, here's what the system taught you. Here's what the system told you. This is what you were conditioned to be, believe, etc. And then you get to be an adult and you'd be like, okay, filter system. What of this is still true? Which of these values are still real to me? What makes me feel powerful? How do I claim my power back? How do I have compassion for myself? Like when the original question was about grace, I believe. And to me, grace and compassion are very similar in experience. And I know my own journey, but also a lot of clients that I coach through it, trying to get someone who's used fear and shame to motivate themselves to be compassionate with themselves feels so disorienting to their system. And I really like how you emphasize the power of the and. Like, yes, that was bullshit. And my power is my voice and how I choose to write what comes next. And it's literally a conscious choice. And pain brings us to more consciousness to choose how you navigate what comes next, to choose what you make of this day, of this moment, of this life. We can all look at bullshit from our past and cite that as a reason we aren't doing something or a reason why we have XYZ reaction. And we have the choice if we want to continue that to be our path or not. And it's literally choosing to fight for ourselves, kind of getting that ultra mindset of saying, yes, I know this will be painful, but I'm going to choose this pain. I'm going to choose the discomfort. I'm going to choose rewriting. I'm going to choose fear so that I can create something more aligned on the other side.
Absolutely. Yeah, even choosing fear of, becoming curious of like, oh, what is the fear? What's underneath of that? Oh, I'm going to be rejected. I'm not, like what's the story underneath of that? Uh One of the things, and it just flew away. I wanted to talk like on the self-judgment piece. Oh, I know. Uh yes. I mean, how we currently grow up in society, like that's one of my big visions. Like we just need to like really just
Thank
demolish the system
Yeah. Fuck it
because
up.
so our everybody we have now generations we have adults walking around like their self-worth is all based on grades and sizes. And I was even thinking about this. I'm like, what if we had grades instead of A B C D F of like love, kindness, peace? What if we didn't have grades? Like there's no grades, but just
Hmm.
think. So for 12 years we are teaching children your worth is based on an A plus or a D minus. Like, what are we doing to the psychology of our kids? Like, no wonder why we're all fucked up. I mean, pardon my French, but we are
Please.
because our whole worth is based off of grades. If you can color within the lines, if you can sit still, children aren't supposed to sit still. And I worked with a client just recently, and she was like, I was told, what's the saying? Children are supposed to be seen and not heard,
Yeah.
especially for women. She's like, she can't stand up to her mother. That's why she can't have the boundaries with her mother because she's so internally timid. And I can like energetically, like I can see it and like feel it. Like she's just cowering down. And it's because this whole system, and this saying has been going on for centuries of like, yeah, children should be seen and not heard. We have the grades. We have, just so much we, can't even cover in the, the next 10 minutes. And that is where we are seeing the dysfunction in our families and in our homes today because everybody's worth is like, oh, well, I'm the CEO. Oh, I'm just a stay at home mother. You know what I mean? Whereas it's, I'm just the nanny. No, you're not. You're the nanny. You're not just a C. You know what I mean? So I'm very particular on like semantics of words. That's one of the things I really work on with obviously myself, but then with clients and just even if you interact with me on the street, I may say, hey, are you open to something? I will elevate your life right here because it's so powerful. Like I mentioned this in a podcast. The word sorry. This is very often used with women. And when I mention this, you're going to notice it forever, the rest of your life, of how many women use it more often than men. But we say sorry, like we bump into the wall and we're like, sorry. Like we're not like, there's a difference between saying sorry for something that you really did wrong versus just coming out of your mouth unconsciously. And this is moving back into consciousness of like, oh, so instead of saying sorry, say excuse me. Like there's other ways, but just notice
Mm-hmm.
like how often you say, you or, anybody listening, like how often the word sorry comes up, and start pivoting that word out of your vocabulary into something like, if it's true, excuse me, or, just something else. Because what's on the energetic level, women are apologizing for their existence.
Hmm.
I'm wondering your opinion on this around how much of personal development growth, taking back your own power, having compassion, kind of the themes we've talked about, how much of it is rooted in the relationships the individual has with their own emotions?
Has everything. Yeah, 100%. Because if we are not in like full integrity and wholeness with ourselves, how can we be in integrity in relationship, whether it's, platonic, romantic, work, whatever, professional. And a lot of that comes from inner self critic, inner self judgments. And when I kind of first started this process, and when Alicia and I spoke a couple of months ago, I was actually working on a methodology of self judgments, and kind of I'm not the inventor of this new body of work, but or and I'm expanding it to better help and guide people of like, what are these self judgments coming from? A person who should do this is what I am judging. And it's a lot of, and that's why we come back to consciousness and awareness, because a lot of this is, what 95% of our life is run by the subconscious. We don't know what's happening until we become aware of what's happening. And so we have these internal judgments all day long, and we don't even realize it, of like, oh. And so, the basic statement is, I forgive myself for judging myself as bad, wrong, pathetic, whatever, could be lazy. Because the truth is, and there could be a lot of truths for one thing, there could be a lot of misinterpretations of one thing, and you just start unraveling them slowly by, like, I mean, when I first started doing this particular body of work, like it was all day long of like, oh, I have a judgment here of like the court system, of this person who cut me off in traffic, or like whatever example. And so many people are so fractured within themselves, fractured with source, God, whatever, adjective you want to use for that, higher power, that it is very difficult to have a right relationship with yourself because you're fragmented. And so a lot of my work personally, and also, with my visions for humanity and one-on-one, containers, is really helping people come back home to themselves, and come back home, through source, through nature, uh, and the self-releasing judgments, the misinterpretations of reality, the distortions that we grew up with that are no longer true. They're lies. And that's really what the forgiveness, like somebody could be walking around with shame. And it's like, and that's a grief too, of like, oh, I lived 4 decades, 40, 50 years or whatever, however long it was, that I was a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of grieving that, like, oh, wow, I just saw that, and grieving that person who I was, and I'm no longer. And for, 40 years or however long it is, that's a very long time to kind of grieve that person that you no longer are. And it's coming, like, yeah, back home to yourself. And it can, it can be a very jarring experience for people, because you're unearthing your whole life that was built on
Bullshit.
lies. So it can, and then it's also freeing too, of like, wow, the truth is I'm a desirable, lovable, amazing person, woman,
Yeah.
man, child. And can you imagine how different our world would be if we like taught this stuff to like kindergartners, and like we didn't have chairs? Like I don't want to see a schoolroom with chairs and desk ever again.
Mhm.
Like we're not supposed like we're not sitting beans.
Mhm.
And so just all these different things that yes, visionary, creative, just like how can I really expand the world to like we need to demolish the current way that we are living and breathing and walking and eating and relating to people, because we have in order to build something new, we got to destroy the old. We can't build a skyscraper on top of it, another skyscraper. Like we have to, if it's falling down, we got to tear it down.
Right.
So it's really disentangling all those misbeliefs. And there's so many. Uh,
Mm.
Yeah, when you were saying that you really committed to the work daily for 2 years, I was like, oh, that's definitely your ultra mindset right there. Because one day of awareness can be overwhelming, but committing to that every single day, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. So, congratulations to you. I mean, that is very impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure there's some like overachievement that we could dissect it of why I do that. Yes, the psychology of it. And I also am like leveraging it. Like I have the ability to do that. Great
Mhm.
gift.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Of like, yes, I could dissect, oh, it's, I'm compensating for this. Or well, yes, I'm sure I know there's reasons. And I can also really use it to my benefit. Like I'm not tempted to drink. I'm not tempted to smoke. Like I'm such like, and because of what I know, like source has called me to do is just like, I can do it. And
Mhm.
so like I've been called like initiation almost. And so I'm very so that's kind of how I tap into that. Of like, yes, most people probably can't do that. And I've been gifted with it. So how can I use this to grow myself in service of love for other people?
Mm.
Uh, because I think sometimes too, like the personal growth community can, and I've done this too of like we dissect everything. You know what I mean? Of like, why am I such a disciplined person? I just am. Yes.
Right.
Like
I
I
didn't mean it like that, to be
am.
clear. But the way I was thinking about it was uh number one of the things that ultra marathons and all of that teaches us is that we are capable of a lot more than we think we are. And
Mhm.
I believe all of us are capable of a lot more than we think we are. Now, how do we all get there? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for us to get there. But I think it's worth it, especially because it's only going to make your life better.
It makes me think of something I saw on socials around like choose your hard. Like getting fit is hard. Living with a disease is hard. Choose your hard. Having a healthy relationship takes work and it's hard. Getting divorced is hard. Choose your hard. And like it is work to dismantle the bullshit that created your misalignments, but it's also work to stay comfortable. It's just less work or a perception of more comfortable and more familiar work. So it's really like, it makes me think of something I said to Scott when COVID was hitting and Trump told us that Easter would be when it was gone. And my husband kept saying, like, oh, we just have to get to Easter. And I'm like, okay, the rest of the world who got this before us, like they're still struggling. So like just because Trump said that, like that doesn't mean it's true. And like what's going to happen is Easter's going to come, you're going to be holding on to that date. Like this is the date I get to live my life again. And then it doesn't happen and you're going to be pissed. And I'm like, you're a history buff and you are literally writing your own history. Like one day your kids and grandkids are going to like read about COVID in a history book and ask you, what did you do? What was it like experiencing that? What do you want to say? And I say random things all the time. I mean, I just talk. And that is one of the few things that he has repeatedly brought back to me is like, I think about this all the time, not just in COVID anymore, but just like this month. If my kids one day were to ask me, like, what did you do the month of September in 2025? What would I actually tell them? And he said it helps him live with more intentionality and kind of be that creator versus autopilot. And I mean, I feel like we don't realize the opportunity we have because life is going to be suffering no matter what. Pain is part of the process. It's part of the required evolutionary like becoming. So why not choose how you use your pain? Like you can be in pain staying where you are, or you can be in pain and try and grow further. One's more familiar and one's more comfortable, but the other also has freedom associated with it. But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
No, I
Yeah,
think you have wisdom that the not everybody has.
I
So,
I
like
think
that.
of it like massage versus foam rolling. Sorry to interrupt you, Hope. Like I don't like being in my life like randomly in pain in my body, so I'll foam roll, which is not comfortable, which is painful because I'd rather choose to be in pain and know when I'm going to be in pain than like live my life and my day randomly my knee starts hurting and it's hurting all day. You know what I mean? It's like a weird version of controlling pain.
and there we go dissecting again.
See? Natural.
Yeah.
But
We're like little mad scientists, like what's going on in the psyche today? No, it's fascinating. Yeah, it's very curious and interesting. And yeah, choose your heart. I have a perspective on that too. Of yeah, like becoming fit is hard if that's the way you choose to look at it. Like how are we choosing to look at it? Like, oh, actually becoming fit is really easy because heart disease and cancer and being overweight and like walking up the stairs is really difficult. Actually, being fit or being healthy, like whatever health, term you want to, interject in there, like that's actually the easy part. The reason why it's hard for people, and this is a system thing too, is because our collective system is used to the victim mentality. And that's kind of why the ultra life model method that I kind of embody, teach, live, experience is that I'm not a victim. If I want to be fit, I can. Like genetics don't play, like, epigenetics are different than genetics, but I can change even my genetics. I can change my epigenetics. So you're not stuck. And I think a lot of people, and the thing is that our society feeds off of the victim mentality. Because if you just look at social media, if you like, it's the car wreck analogy. There's a accident on the road, everybody stops and looks. Versus, like if there's beautiful trees, nobody's going to stop. And so people get a hit. People have become addicted to that victim subconscious, that victim mentality, because when they're in pain, people will come to their rescue. If they're unfit, oh, you poor thing. It's okay. We'll take the elevator. Oh, like it's okay. You had a hard day. Have the donut. You deserve it. So we're feeding into that, like that victim mindset. And that's just not how I live. Like there's been certain, moments in my life of like, oh, I really do feel like a victim here. I could definitely be a victim. And when you're a victim, you can't be the author of your life.
Mm.
So it comes down to like, oh, how do I want to live today? How do I want to live this minute? How do I want to like feel? Do I always want to feel defeated? Like what do I want in life? And physical challenges, like you don't have to, again, I'm not telling somebody to go run 100 miles and at the same time just do something physically challenging, whether it's like walk 3 miles a day, which is less than 10,000 steps. Like all of my clients, like a physical challenge, whether it be a 5K or a 10K, like you will see your patterns show up in very real time when you do something physically. And physical fitness, yes, it's for the body, it's for the mind too, because it gets the endorphins going and creative juices. You're out in nature because we are one with nature, like the tree is looking back at us, like we are part of nature. And that's coming again, like home to ourself. When we are disconnected from nature, we're disconnected from ourself and from source, because everything's plural. mind, body, spirit, heart, holistic, like this, like a circle. We're not like siloed beings, and that's the fractured. Most of us are kind of living like, oh, we're a victim here, and I can't do this because I've been conditioned. Well, we can change the conditioning. I'm going to put you in a new fish tank.
Uh, I'll close with this. One of my favorite researchers is Dr. Dan Siegel, and he just sent an article last week about a 92-year-old man that he helped create new neural pathways. And it was just so beautiful. I'm going to send it out in my email, the next email that I send out, because it was so cool. Uh,
Mm.
but you're saying we're not stuck, and that's the kind of stuff that I think about, that even at 92, you can still create new neural pathways. You're not stuck. You can get out of things. And it's not easy. I'm not ever going to tell anybody this stuff is easy. And once you've done 2 years of work, it might look easy to other people, but it's not. It's not an easy journey to go through. And in the end, though, it's worth it. You're
Mhm.
worth it. So that's my
Yeah,
closing
yeah.
thoughts. Anybody else want to add to it?
Yeah, I get. Yeah, my closing thought on that, maybe two. One, there was an 80-year-old man who just became, the oldest man to finish Badwater 135. 80 years old. There's like an 86-year-old woman who just, I think, did the Appalachian Trail, like
I think
2,000
I saw
miles.
that.
Like, there's a 9-year-old boy who just climbed, a bunch of things. So, yes, young and old. Like, you're like age is just a number. It's the one time I'll use the word just. Age is just a number. Like, you don't know what you're capable of until you try. Like, I, one of my other legendary quotes is, when you set the bar low enough, you're going to hit it every time. So, do you want to keep tripping over that bar and getting bruises on your ankles and shins? Or do you want to set the bar high and be like, how high can I reach today, and go for it? I
Mm,
digress. The second one is, your life is a masterpiece that only you can paint. And what do you want the world to see from what you paint? The world is living, not dying. The world is living for your masterpiece. And when we all paint our individual masterpieces, that is how we bring healing and hope and love to humanity in the world.
That's
mm,
cool. Laura, anything
totally.
else?
Uh, your relationship with your emotions is kind of where all this starts. So you want to be home and safe with you, get to know them.
Thank you. Okay. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for today. Very inspirational, very awesome. And I hope you start your own school, Hope, and like
Yeah.
start a movement, because I am down with changing our systems. Uh,
Amen.
so thank you for
Awesome.
the work that you're doing and for letting yourself create the way you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. We'll catch you next time.